it's one thing to lose to Colombia, who we all know is a very good team. It's another thing to lose 5-1 in the way in which they did, Christine.
Oh, yeah. This is an embarrassment, for sure.
Yeah.
This is just an abysmal performance across the board, maybe with a few bright spots. But it also begs the question, and I know that one of the big stats that were thrown in was like, this is the first time in U.S. men's national team history that all the starters are playing in the top 5 European leagues. And it's like, okay, let's talk about it. Matt Turner last played his first real full game for Nottingham, January 30th, 2024, regular season. That's what we're putting in goal. And now that's on a slight on Matt because he's not getting club minutes. But this is the state of the men's national team. And you can go down the line with that. And I actually will. Joe Scally, 25 starts. Chris Richards, 23 starts. Tim Ream, 17 starts. Anthony Robinson, 37 starts. McKennie, 29 starts. Cardozo, 15 starts. Gio Reyna, 1 start for Dortmund, 2 starts for Nottingham. Tim Weah, 12 starts. Balogun, 19 starts. Pulisic, 32 starts. So that's the state of the men's national team that we're fielding.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a positive that we have 11 players that are playing in the top 5 leagues. I think that as a stat shows it's a positive. It's another thing to take 11 players that play in different clubs and put them together as a team. And I think you heard Greg Berhalter after the match say there was a lot of mistakes that, you know, he took some of the blame. He said we weren't following, our players weren't following orders. Look.
So this is the quote. He says, really disappointed, obviously, with the result. We're not framing it as a lesson learned. We're actually framing it as a wake-up call. And my question, Charlie, is this a wake-up call or is this a reality check?
Yeah, a wake-up call. I think maybe he just got lost with his words here because this is not a wake-up call. You're playing against Colombia. There's nothing to be woken up.
Who you've never beaten, by the way.
You know just how good they were coming into the match. You know the quality of players that they have at their disposal. So it's not a wake-up call. It's more of a we're not as good as we thought we were. And you got to bring it. Every single player needs to bring it every single match. And from minute 1 to minute 90, which we didn't see. Friendlies are what we are going to see from this U.S. men's national team up into the World Cup because there's no World Cup qualifying. So every match has to be played like it is a World Cup final to push the envelope, to see where we are. So I'm glad the U.S. finally scheduled a Colombia and a Brazil because these are the type of games, matches we need, not Jamaica, no disrespect to Jamaica, Mexico, and then the Concacaf teams that we're accustomed to seeing.
Then the Copa America.
You need to be playing the top teams every cycle, every window. And
now we got to bounce back against Brazil?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
But also, like, how worrying is it that your players that usually are the regular starters, that have the most minutes, that play entire games, like Anthony Robinson, are having performances like this with this squad?
But, I mean, look, there's a lot of players that we could look at this and say they did not step up, they did not play well. I think there's some players that I think showed you glimpses of like, oh, okay, I could see something here. But how... I mean, for me, Balogun and Tim Weah, when they were connecting, I was like, there's a glimpse of what we saw at that Nations League in Dallas. I'm sorry, in Vegas. There's a little glimpse there because they were connecting with each other.
A glimpse ain't good enough for 90 minutes.
It was not good enough.
They disappeared outside of the goal and that one assist. There was nothing. I honestly forgot that Balogun was on the pitch.
Which has been the case. And by the way, I forget. Colombia did lose to the U.S. back in the World Cup at Escobar's own goal, so I did forget that. But the point I'm trying to make is, moving forward, I'm shocked. If you watch this match without knowing anything about the FIFA rankings, who would you pick as higher on the FIFA rankings? You'd say clearly Colombia. And the U.S. is above. It was shocking across the board. But there were 2 major players that I think were missed that would have made a little bit of a difference. I'm not necessarily sure we walk away with a win, but a Tyler Adams who clearly isn't fit yet, and I hope he can get some minutes or hopefully start by the time the Copa America starts. But also Serginho Dest, because as much as I think Joe Scally is a great defender, there were moments going forward where he looked completely lost, and it looked like it shifted the way the team plays.
I think you brought up a fantastic point on the amount of starts and playing time that these players are getting in Europe, because when I was coming through the national team, it wasn't about what club you played at, really. Obviously, we want players in Europe because that's the best competition and where you're pushed every week, you're pushed in training every week. MLS, if you're playing every week, that's great, but you're not pushed every day in training. You're not worried, you're not looking over your shoulder about someone taking your spot if you don't perform, and that pressure gets you to fulfill your potential because you have to bring it every single day and every single week. And then if you're talking about Europe or you're talking about relegation or promotion, that's also another added pressure or element of pressure that allows you to perform with the national team. So your form really dictated, when I was coming through, how you were going to be called into the national team and how you were going to be used. Because in all, you need to be in a rhythm. You need to be fit. You need to be feeling good and confident, because that means you're going to step into the national team and the level's higher than what you're playing with the club. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit more physical. The tempo's through the roof, and you're seeing now guys who are dropping off because they're not getting those minutes that they need every day, every week with their clubs. And so,
how do you solve that? Do you go lower a level as a player?
I would go wherever you get the most minutes. You need to have quality time on pitch. You can't just like hope to God that you're going to make it on this roster and still be the same quality as your peer who's playing as often as some of them are. Like, it's insane to think that.
Well, we would all say that Weston McKennie had a great year at
He did. He had an amazing year at Juve.
And he didn't look that great in this match. I'm not necessarily sure that's a direct correlation.
Right, but I think that the direct correlation there is that they all played poorly. You can't be one person isolated. Nobody's going to show out there. I mean, you could literally look at even, Weah, right, who's had fewer starts for Juve, who is quality and adds a lot on that wing, but the minimum that he could possibly do is like score a goal. Congratulations. But like, again, the rest of the squad isn't behind you. You're isolated.
Well, you just look at the team, and in this game in particular, so one, I want to say it's never as bad as we think it is, right? It's never as good as we think it is. So I know they lost 5-1. We know they're not a 5-1 type caliber team against a Colombia, right? It was 2-1 before the subs. They weren't playing great, but it was 2-1. So 5-1 is obviously a score line that's
counter. You are whatever team shows up on that pitch that day, and they were a 5-1 team.
No, I don't agree with that.
5-1 is a result that should cause you to answer some questions.
If this was a real game, official game, they're not making all those substitutions, and it's not a 5-1 game.
What did you make of the starting 11 that Greg put out for this one?
I'm a little bit disappointed because I wanted them to experiment with a different formation, a different setup, a different collection of players. And so, Christian only played 45 minutes as well, so he's not playing 45 minutes in a real game.
That's fair. There are minutes restrictions and things like that happening.
But in this game in particular, what went really wrong for the U.S. is the midfield got overrun.
And that's supposed to be our strength.
It's supposed to be our strongest part of this group, and we didn't control the tempo. We didn't control the game. They were played through. They were stretched, and there was no cohesion. Look at the support Balogun had. He was playing on an island. Balogun is not a lone striker who's going to occupy two center backs like Erling Haaland and fight off center backs, and that's just not his game. He needs to be involved. He needs somebody close by. He needs a lot of touches. 17 touches in 72 minutes, that's not it. You're not going to get the most out of Balogun in that instance. He's a great passer, so he can pull out defenders out of space. You need players running off of him. Gio Reyna, he had an okay game for 63 minutes, but again, you're not seeing him up and around under the striker. He's not pulling the strings that we saw in Vegas when that was the best we've ever seen this U.S. men's national team in that Nations League final. So obviously things have to be a lot better. And we're talking about Brazil. Now we're not going to see them experiment against Brazil after a 5-1 loss.
Well, I would hope not. That would be really embarrassing if they go into that and just say, hey, we're just going to throw this lineup out willy-nilly and hope for the best, which at this point kind of feels like what they did with the last match.
What do we want to see against Brazil? Because up next is Copa America, and we have all said if they do not get out of the group stage, if they don't make it to a semifinal, that is not a successful tournament for them.
If they don't get out of the group stage, it's a capitulation.
It's a complete failure.
It's a failure of all sorts. I think you have to look. You have Vinicius Jr. coming up. You've got to figure out something on the right-hand side. I don't know if Joe Scally is that guy that can keep pace with them, so I'm going to suggest maybe Tim Weah right back. I would love for them to go to three.
So we talk about Joe Scally. Joe Scally defensively makes sense if you want to defend.
Yeah.
If you want a defender, but you lose everything going forward. Serginho Dest, look at what he does for the U.S. in terms of creating chances going forward. So you replaced someone who is so vital to you creating chances with someone who is just defensive, right? Turns the ball over or negative passes. So going backwards or sideways and can kill attacks. So if you're playing Timothy Weah, Now you have someone who's played right back for a full season and left back, who you know will give you a lot more going forward, and then that allows you to bring another attacking talent on the pitch so that you can control games. You have more of an option to do counterattacking or maybe sitting in a lower block or a mid block and being more dangerous in transition. So I would like to see us get more of our talented players on the ball on the pitch.
You think that